So everything is good in the world. Well, not everything. But anyway, the Mystic has made a very charming video. It's just filled me with such peace and tranquility. Anyway, so we've reached some agreement at last. Yay. And excellent. Great. Yeah, it's like you finally got that square peg to almost fit the round hole kind of thing. It's like a little pink flower. Little pink flower. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So just a couple of things to clean up. So I'll clean them up because we have this issue about why don't they pull the money out of the reserve accounts? Because it just makes sense. If you have a big pile of money, why wouldn't you want it close to you? I wouldn't want it over my neighbor's house. If it's my money, I want it in my house. I want to play with it. Yeah, so it just seems unintuitive. If you're a bank and you have $3 trillion sitting in a reserve account, why wouldn't you use it? What's the other issue that has to be resolved? Oh, the effect of this crap, this thing called QE on markets, and whether this is a benign thing or a very, very, very destructive thing in the end. This is debt. Whether you like it or not, that's what this is. This is just another way of issuing debt, and debt is a real problem in the future, okay? Because, like I said, we ever get real interest rates again, we have so much debt, we can't finance it. It's just the truth. If the interest rates are allowed, if you're ever allowed to get interest on a regular bank account again, the financing cost of our national debt will be so high it'll consume all of the resources we take in. So we're in big, deep doo-doo, and there's no, we can pretend it's not deep doo-doo by putting fake money in fake accounts, but that's not going to solve the problem. But anyway, I just want to talk about how nice it is to not have to argue. See, I don't like arguing. As much as people think I like arguing, I don't like it. I've just had to do it my entire life. I mean, since I arrived on this planet, there's been all kinds of shit that's wrong, and I sit there and say, that's fucked up, and people just keep saying, no it isn't. I'm like, it's fucked up. The dog only has 3 legs. It's fucked up. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's every day of my existence has been an argument, and I don't want it that way, but yeah, I'm sorry. This is fucked up, people. It's all fucked up, and all you people pretending it's not fucked up are assholes. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to get angry. So when Nick says this is a wonderful system or something like that, I mean, yeah, that's just, please. Let's not even think about that, Gary. But I love the part where he was like, he wanted to come. If I lived next door, he would have killed me. I mean, at least that, at least you care enough to kill me. Because I've always, I've had little thoughts about, I'm gonna burn his fucking garden down. Or steal his apple trees or something. Anyway, well, you don't get the apples, so well, you get some of the apples. I really have a thing for apples. I like apples and turtles. Go figure. Anyway, so. Now let's get to business. Sorry, I just need to do that. Just this, I'm having this afterglow kind of feeling. It's very good, and I'm just kind of mellow, and I'm just kind of wallowing in those girl feelings. Anyway, so back to the drawing. All right. So what I avoided playing with, just because it gets messy, is C. And this little C thing that went flying out into the universe. So if you understand the C, the blue trillion that the pink trillion turned into, is a liability. And so when I talked about C cashing out, because it was way up in the reserve account, right? It's way up. It's got $1 trillion sitting in it. None of my pens were right. It's got $1 trillion. Why isn't it pulling its $1 trillion out? Well, the reason is because it knows it has this huge liability sitting out there. It has a big, giant trillion liability, so it knows it's not solvent. See, everybody thinks these banks are solvent because they have all these trillions of dollars in reserve accounts. But they know they have all these liabilities out. So the reason why none of these banks are going to take the money out is simple. It's just like C. So Nick is saying like, oh, they could forever just transfer. He could buy equities with the money right now, with his reserve account, and just end up transferring his reserves to B. Well, he can't transfer his reserves to B for the simple reason that he has this C liability out, and he knows it. And when that C liability comes back here to get resolved by the Fed, he's all of a sudden going to be minus D. And he ain't going to have no T in his column. And then he's going to have to give the Federal Reserve $1 trillion in cash. He's going to have to put cash in his reserve account because he's not going to have the cash in it. So recognize this is still this is fundamentally a reserve account. And I know what the Fed did. The Fed polluted it with regular banking transactions. Okay, and that's what's screwing they should have set up a separate account for this QE crap, because it has nothing to do with the liquidity of the bank. It has nothing to do with the financial integrity of the bank. They've destroyed the function of the reserve account by putting regular banking transactions into the reserve account, and it's just annihilated the value of having the reserve account. And that's why this is fundamentally wrong right there. That's a wrong. You put that right on the list. Okay, this is fucked up. This is one of these. It's fucked up to ruin something that works. Okay? Using your car as a dishwasher is fucked up. This is a car. It's not a dishwasher. The Fed never should have used it as a dishwasher. This is just bullshit. And so yeah, that's part of this. So I think you understand what I'm saying, though. C still has a liability. It knows it has a liability. It's not going to take the cash, because if it takes the cash, it knows the liability is going to show up someday. It's going to show up in the Fed, and they're going to sit there, and the Fed's going to say, you're $1 trillion short. Give me the cash. Your reserve account is below minimums. You're $1 trillion below minimums. Produce the $1 trillion. And there's no way they're going to be able to produce the $1 trillion without selling something, blah, 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 blah. So that ain't going to happen. All right. Now, the other important thing to understand here is now Nick is pretending like all of this is just name changing. So he still isn't getting the market impact on this. And that when the Fed buys these treasuries, it's buying selling pressure. Okay, markets have selling pressure and buying pressure. And when the Fed bought these treasuries off the market, it's consuming selling pressure. Sellers sell. Okay, we didn't buy securities, like I said, that were sitting in a vault for 17 years, and we just changed the name on the security and then ran away. That's not what we did. Okay, even if a bank owned a security for 7 years, you know it's already leveraged that security. You know it's already mortgaged it. Okay, and there's no way it can sell that security because it's basically mortgaged. Okay, it's like a car that you haven't paid for yet. You can't sell it to somebody else. Okay, because you still got to pay for it. And none of the shit the banks own, it's got so many strings tied to it. There's no way the banks could release one of their securities to the Fed without them replacing it, because they've leveraged it. It's tied to too many other strings, and there's no way they could unravel all those strings. So they're just going to buy a security off the market. So we're buying securities from brokers. And understand, a broker does not own anything. A broker merely puts the seller and the buyer together. So when the Fed bought the football, it bought it from a seller. It didn't buy it from a shelf. It bought it off the seller market. And so it ate selling pressure. And obviously when you eat selling pressure, the buying pressure is free. Right? It releases buying pressure when you eat selling pressure. And so obviously this has had a tremendous impact on the market. It's basically a $4 trillion infusion into the markets. The gold market, the oil market, the stock market, the commodity market. Any market that rich people invest in, we have eaten selling pressure off those markets by buying instruments that would have been on those markets. So we've eaten the pieces of the thing that can be bought. And therefore, the pieces that are left are going to go for a higher price. It's like me taking all the Van Goghs off the painting market. You can imagine that all the other paintings would go up in value because I took all the Van Goghs. You get it? Come on, yes, you got to get that. And Mystic's got to agree with me that this is he doesn't think this is the intent of QE, but this is the intent of it, in my opinion. But even if he doesn't agree, it's not the intent. He's got to agree to some extent that this is having an impact on financial markets, that it's driving them up. And my point is that when they have to resolve this, like debt, when debt day comes and you got to reissue the bond, this is not going to be a good thing. Yeah, and it's not going to be a good thing when the Fed releases the footballs. When it has to sell the footballs onto the market, then it's going to be eating buying pressure. Okay, so it's going to be eating the buying pressure and releasing the selling pressure. And so the markets are going to go down. And so understand that the whole point of having reserve accounts was to create insurance against these kind of messes. And this is exactly the whole point of having a Federal Reserve was to create protections against failure, protections against bad days, right? Bad times. Let's call them bad times. The Federal Reserve System was a protection against bad times, a way to stop recessions from becoming depressions, or to mitigate against, to create a pressure release valve. By doing what it's doing, it's creating a pressure increasing valve, because now it has less tools when disaster strikes. Instead of being in the flush, when disaster strikes, it's going to be stuck with equities on a market that there's selling pressure on. Having footballs when nobody wants footballs is going to be, I wish I could change it into some other kind of thing, but you have to understand the very thing you don't want to have as a tool, they're going to have exactly the wrong tool at the wrong time. So if markets are going down, it's not going to certainly help markets that the Fed has $4 trillion worth of securities. They're not going to be able to use those to fix the problem. That's not going to help at all. It's a non-tool. It's a hammer going the wrong way. I don't. How do I describe it? It's a screwdriver that's round. It's just not gonna. It's not a tool. This makes you more vulnerable, not less vulnerable. This is anti-insurance against disaster. This is making you less capable of dealing with disaster. So that's the real problem here. And that's this was, QE is a desperately stupid, short-term, quick fix, gerrymandered crap. It's not a solution to the problem. It's going to make the problem worse. I said it in one of my videos, but yeah, this just ensures that when the car hits the wall, every piece of the car is going to fall off. This just makes it more certain that any downward motion is going to be all the way off the cliff. Yeah, this gives the government no tools. This breaks the government's hands to do anything. And I just think that's incredibly important to understand. So yeah, so let's not be fooled. These reserve numbers now are completely inflated. They have nothing to do with bank real liquidity or solvency. It's a complete illusion. The banks know it's an illusion. Okay, it's an illusion. The reason why the banks aren't going to take the money out and buy equities, because the banks know that if they go out and spend $1 trillion on Google stock tomorrow, their liabilities are going to come back into the Fed, and they're going to have to sell the stock the next day, because they're going to have to get the cash to fill the reserve account. They can't. They're not liquid. Okay, and more importantly, is the Fed's going to know they're not liquid. So if they go out and buy Google stock, they have to register the fact that they did make that purchase, and even though the liability might not have directly come back through another bank, their solvency is going to be clearly insolvent in terms of they're not going to be meeting their minimum reserve numbers. So they're still screwed. But that's it. They know it's a gimmick, and that's why they're not playing the gimmick, is because they know it's not real money. They know it has nothing to do with their real liquidity. that these numbers mean absolutely nothing because every one of them is tied to a liability that the banks have. The banks have liabilities for every digit that's in that reserve account now, except for the 30 billion base or 60 billion base. The rest of it is all liability. It is not assets. These are not bank assets. These are bank liabilities. They've turned the reserve account, which used to be bank assets, into bank liabilities. And that's the fraud of this whole thing. So again, I'll tell you, this sets us up for disaster. There's no way for we know there's never good enough times, right? Even when the markets are going up and everybody's happy, look what they're doing. They're doing QE. So even after the markets went up 20% and then 50% and then 60%, they're still saying we need to do QE. The rich aren't rich enough. I mean, that's the insidiousness of this. So when exactly, how high does the market, how rapidly does the market have to be going up for the Fed to feel comfortable in releasing the footballs onto the market and creating selling pressure? How preposterously good times do there have to be when the Fed is going to release these footballs? So yeah, we already know. Once they stop buying footballs, right? And they haven't even stopped buying yet. So understand, they still haven't even stopped buying them yet. They have to first, and when Bernanke even suggested they were going to stop buying, right? He said, "Oh well, I think we'll be done in 2013. We'll close this up." The market went down 5% in the next 2 days. I mean, this is, so Nick has to concede this is a market instrument. I mean, if the market goes down 5% 2 days after Bernanke says we're going to stop buying, we know this is just bubbling the market. This is just bubbling the market. This is nothing else. And and that's just the threat of stopping buying. What about when they have to sell this stuff? When they actually have to put it on the market? I mean, if people are afraid of them stopping the buying process, what do you think is going to happen when they try to sell this crap? It's not going to be a 5% dip. It's going to be a 40% dip. So anyway. This is a sham, a tragedy, a catastrophe. This is the prescription of stupidity. This is dumb. This is stupid. This is not rational financing. This is not a wonderful system. This is nonsense. It's a racket. It's a crookery. It's crap. It's shit. It's bullshit. It ain't gonna work is the key number here. It ain't gonna work. Okay. I don't care how many Japs are doing it, okay? I mean, they're not exactly the most brilliant, innovative people in the world. I mean, they just did do that whole Fukushima thing. So, come on. I mean, they let shit blow up in their country. Well, this is a fucking bomb, and we shouldn't have sat there and said, "Oh, look, Japan's got a good idea. Let's buy our own debt. And let's buy the stock market. That'll work." Yeah, shit. Let's buy the shittiest pie available. The shittiest stuff on earth. Let's go buy some of that. The stuff worth the least number of dollars possible per, that converts into the tiniest piece of cash. Yeah, let's buy some of that. Okay. Enough, I think. I've resolved the two things. The point is why aren't they... cash is great. I mean, in Nick's argument, I still don't get. Cash is cool. You'd want it if you really had it. But the point is the banks know they don't really have the cash. They have a huge liability hanging out there, and if they have the reserves in their column, it's only because their liabilities haven't come home yet. And they know it. They know their liability is just hanging out there, and there's no way they can take the cash out and spend it because their liability is going to show up, and they're going to have to cash out to refill their reserve account, their portion of the reserve account. They're going to have to put cash in. If somebody takes cash out of the reserves, somebody else is going to have to put cash in. Yeah. Until the footballs are sold. Oh, like again, the fundamental problem here is they broke the reserve account by putting daily business transactions in the reserve account. I mean, it's just silly. It's a reserve account. It's supposed to be just a mirror of a tiny percentage of bank transactions. It's not supposed to have actual bank transactions in it. And so it's just completely distorted the meaning of this account. Alright. Yeah, I think this should be... I don't think I created a problem here. Okay, so, till next time.